Hi everyone, Nigel Saunders here. I'm going to start today's video by pruning up my Kapok or Kapok tree, and I'll explain why I want to prune it. I always say that summer is the growing season and you let your trees grow and gain vigor if they're in the development stage, which this tree is. So the last work I did on this tree is I repotted them and I added a few cuttings off of the tree, and they've rooted and they're growing well. So you would think, my major goal is to develop a good root system just by letting the top of the tree grow, and that is true. However, the Kapok tree is a difficult tree to get branching on, and I've got some good branches. I've got 4 good branches. But you can see there's one down here that didn't make it. It died off. And they're very sensitive. These trees want to grow when they're young. They just want to grow a single leader. They don't want to grow branches. They just want to grow tall. And these trees are some of the tallest trees in the rainforest, if not the tallest. So they just want to shoot vertical. So what happens is if you let one branch get more dominant than the others, the other branches get weaker and all the strength just goes into that one single leader, and it gets stronger and stronger, and you may get all your other branches die off, and the one leader will just take over and the tree will try and shoot vertical. I've grown these Kapok trees. If they're sitting on the floor of the greenhouse, I've had them grow to the very peak of the greenhouse. They're very rapid growers once they develop a good root system. So you can see the tree is looking really healthy. Nice green leaves. They're a little limp right now, but that's because of the heat in the greenhouse here. It is like, well, getting close to 50 degrees Celsius, which is really hot. So I've got the fans running. The solar powered fan, the other fan down here. I got the doors open. So I'm trying to keep it as cool as possible in here. So today I want to prune up the branches, and I want to try and balance the vigor of them. So the strongest branch, which is this one, will get pruned a little bit more than some of the smaller, weaker branches. So I'm trying to balance the vigor and keep all the branches alive. And if I don't prune it, I think this one would just start to get, as I said, more and more dominant, stronger, and the other ones will continue to get weaker, and eventually the one leader would take over and the others would die. So that's the reason I'm pruning it today, even though I do want to grow the tree, get my trunk and root system growing bigger and better, but that will come with time. I've got to keep the vigor balanced. I'm all ready to begin the pruning, so here I go, and I'm wondering how low I should go. If I, just prune the tips off, all these lower leaves will eventually die off, and I'll just have straight bare branches. So I do want to keep this tree compact and try and get spreading branches to eventually develop a canopy or an interesting branch structure on it. So I'm going to go quite low. So this is my strongest branch, so I'm going to take it back as far as I can. So I have an outward facing leaf here. So I'll prune just above that, and I'll leave a little bit for dieback. So here I go. Big cut. Done. And these grow really easily from cuttings. You just prune off the lower leaves. Plant them nice and deep in a pot, and they root and grow. So they're really good at that. And I notice my camera is fogging up, so I'll let the camera lens clear. I just brought it from inside the house out to the greenhouse, and the camera is cool from being in the house, and it's really hot and humid in the greenhouse, so it's fogging up inside the camera lens. So I'll just let it sit for a while, and then we'll come back and continue pruning. I let the camera warm up here in the greenhouse, so now we're back in business with videoing. It's kind of clouded over a bit, and the temperature in the greenhouse has come down to about 34 degrees Celsius, so it's quite pleasant in here now. I've got all the fans running, so I hope the noise doesn't bother you too much in the background. I'm not turning them off today. It's too hot out. Well, too hot and humid. So my next branch, this one has already been pruned once here. You can see, I hope you can see that there's a pruning cut here, and it's divided into two. So these branches are a little bit, they're not as strong as the one I just pruned, so I'm going to prune them a little higher. I could either prune it back here, I've got a leaf facing outwards, or if I go up higher, I've got two leaves facing outwards. I think I'm going to go higher, so taking the tip off, like that. And then the other one that's growing up the middle, I'm going to take it back to kind of continue growing it vertical. And I think I'll take it back here, taking the top off. Now this branch coming up here is already again being pruned here once. So this strong part growing up here, it's quite strong, so I can prune it back fairly hard. I've got an outward facing leaf here, so I'll prune just about there. So here I go, like that. Then I have a strong one coming up the back here. I've got a leaf fanning out here, one here, or a single one up top. I think I'm going to go up top here, keeping some strength in the tree. And then my main trunk line, this is the extension of the original trunk. I pruned it once up here, so I've got a branch coming off here, one here, one here. So this one's getting a little strong, so I'll take top off it. This one isn't quite as strong, so I'll just take the tip off, and the other one I'm not going to touch at all. So that's got the main tree pruned up. It's looking quite nice. So I'll just give the tree a good watering and put it back on the bench. Here is a closer look at the tree now, so you can see all the branches that have been pruned back. It's developing, you know, some flare at the root base here. The trunk is still green, but that will change in time, and it may get all those little thorns all over it eventually. Yeah, so it's looking good. The cuttings are both, or all four cuttings are looking good. They don't need pruning yet. Yeah, so this should continue to grow for the rest of the summer quite nicely. I'll get even more branching, I hope, and yeah, try and develop a nice tropical style tree out of this. All right, here I go with the water. Give it a nice, cool drink of water. Okay, that's coming out the drainage holes now. So that should be good. I can put the tree back on the bench now. When I say put the tree back on the bench, I mean the bench in the greenhouse here. We've had some very cool nights, not this week, but last week. We got down to almost single digits, so like 10, 11 degrees Celsius. That's too cold for the kapok tree. It needs to stay, I think, I try and keep it above 50 degrees Celsius, because I found if they get down closer to freezing, they just totally die. And that's how I've lost all my other ones that I grew from seed. So hopefully, you know, if I keep them warm, I'll develop my kapok into a grand old tree for the future. Down on the floor of the greenhouse here is my Australian umbrella tree. And I put this tree down here in spring, and I've been, you know, carefully watering it. And the canopy's growing in really nicely, but I haven't really looked at the tree since spring. So I'm going to dig it out today. This is another maybe potential show tree. I thought about putting it in the KW show last year, and then I did a little bit of leaf pruning and it didn't look so good. So eventually this will go in a show. So let's get it out and have a look and see what's developing on it. Here is a look at my umbrella tree. So it looks nice and healthy. Underneath, there's the trunk line. So I've got some really strong woody aerial roots. There's some new aerial roots developing. Yeah, it's looking quite nice actually. I've got like a yellow leaf here I can remove. Yeah, I just thought I'd take a look at it, see how it's doing. It's got a nice bed of moss. It's in a nice Japanese pot. So it's kind of an unusual tree. I think, you know, most people grow the dwarf Schefflera, the Schefflera arboricola. But this is the large leaf one, and it's kind of unusual, and it's an interesting tree. So that's a possibility for the fall shows. Something very, very different. So I'll also give this a good watering before I put it back. I think it's doing quite well. Okay, here I go with the water. Make sure it's really well watered. It's definitely humid out today. We could get a rainstorm this afternoon. It kind of clouds over. There's almost no wind outside. It's like 100% humidity. It's really warm, a high of 29 today. So there's a good chance we could get a good afternoon thunderstorm, which would be really nice because then I wouldn't have to water all my outdoor trees. It would definitely be a lot nicer than watering them in this heat. Okay, so that's well watered. I can put it back on the bench. I will take off that one yellow leaf. And there's a leaf here that's not looking really good. It's kind of starting to go yellow. And these are just older leaves. There's a bit of debris on the surface I can clean up. A few weeds I can pull out. Not too many. Yeah, I think that'll do. It's looking quite nice. Let me just have a look around the back here. Oh, there's another kind of yellowy leaf here I can take out. A few spider webs in here. So the back of the tree is quite interesting too. I'll show you that. So this used to be the front of the tree at one time. And what happened, I had it in the poly house and I was away and it got really hot. The door was closed and it heated up like an oven in the poly house. And it killed off the entire main trunk line. The parts of it that were in the shade over here survived and grew, and it sprouted a whole bunch of branches. So there's 5 branches total coming out of the tree. And I've left this dead wood on. It's very fragile. It's not really suitable for dead wood, this tree. You can see it's rotting away at the base here, but I thought I'll just leave it rot away naturally. So this is, you know, another possible front for the tree. It's quite interesting, but I think the other side is even better. I think it has more roots and more interest. It's a tough call, but we'll see how it's looking at showtime. I don't think there's anything I can do to the tree today other than let it grow. There's 2 possibilities for showing this tree. A month before the show, I could defoliate the tree so the new leaves are coming in quite small at showtime, or I could just embrace the large leaves and just let it grow and get these giant leaves on it. That's the 2 possibilities, and I'm not sure which would look better. You know, with the giant large leaves, it might appeal to some people, or try and get it, you know, more miniaturized with the smaller leaves. So I'll decide what I'm going to do with the tree closer to showtime. I'm keeping an eye on the weather. There's lots of fluffy clouds. Over here we have kind of a dark gray one. It looks like it could be a rain cloud. So I'll keep you updated to see if we get a thunderstorm this afternoon. The next tree I'm looking at today is my cashew trees. These are grown from a seed. And they're healthy at the moment, but you can see as it's grown, it hasn't developed any branches down low. This one stayed smaller. So I'm wondering if I should do like a trunk chop on it today and see how the tree reacts. I don't want to grow it, you know, into a great big giant tall tree. So I think I'll try that. I've got a backup here. I won't touch the little one, but I will chop the tall one and just see what happens, see if it grows branches and recovers. And if it doesn't, well, I got my backup. Okay, so where to cut it is the question. I have, it looks like some buds down low here. I could go right back to here, just leaving a short trunk, or I could be a little more conservative and go up here. And I think I will be a little conservative, so I'm going to trunk chop it right here. So here I go, big cut coming up. Here I go. Just like that, taking the top off. So we'll see what happens. I will seal that with the rubber cement, just to make sure it's not going to die back too much. Seal that cut up like that, and I'll let you know in a future video what has happened to the cashew trees. The trees are starting to get a nice bark on them, which is kind of exciting. And you can see by this one, you know, the leaves can get quite small on them. So I think it's a suitable tree for a bonsai. I haven't really seen any cashew bonsai, but maybe I'll look on the internet and see if there's any. I'm sure someone's tried it. I couldn't find any pictures of kind of mature cashew bonsai. I saw one picture of someone who had started one from a seed and it was starting to develop, but no mature bonsai. So maybe it's a new species to discover. There is some pictures on the internet of the largest cashew tree in the world. It's near a park, near a beach in Brazil, and it's a spreading tree. So the trunk stays fairly skinny, but you get all these sprawling spider-like branches that cover. They sprawl out and they root and grow, and it just spreads out. It's kind of like one of those ficus trees. So an interesting tree to try and develop as a bonsai. I'll give you an update on the baobab trees. So here is my trunk diameter. Year 4 from a seed, and it's growing, yeah, really well. You can see the canopy up here. You can see the leaves are drooping, so I always check if it needs water, and it does. You can see the soil is dried out, and I just kind of scrape down a bit. And I'm finding, you know, with all these leaves up here, that the tree needs watering at least every day, and now sometimes it's needing watering in the morning and in the evening. Otherwise the leaves stay droopy. When you water it, they all perk up and go horizontal. So it's a good indicator when the tree needs watering, when the leaves start to droop a bit. So I'll do that next. I'll give the baobabs a good watering. And I try and soak them thoroughly so the entire pot is soaked. And then I let them dry out again. Okay, here I go watering the baobab trees. Or baobab, however you want to say it. I find most Africans that I run into say baobab, and most Westerners say baobab. And I've been corrected either way. I've seen people say, no, in Africa we pronounce it baobab. And then I've heard other people say, no, baobab. So I don't know. So there's one thoroughly watered. It's running out the bottom. So these trees, they're succulent. They store water in the trunks. So in the summertime, they like to store up lots of water. And then when they lose their leaves in the winter, the tree stays alive on the stored water. It also helps them get through periods of drought. Whenever anyone tells you that a succulent plant can't be a bonsai, ask him about the giant baobabs that can live to 1,000 years old and get a fantastic structure to the canopy. Yeah, there's a succulent plant that grows into a giant tree. I think there's still a possibility of a thunderstorm. There's still some gray clouds up there. It's so humid and still. So hopefully it will. If not, I'm going to have to water all my trees fairly soon. So I'll leave today with an update on my Korean maple. Here it is on the bench in here. So it's filled out quite nicely. There's a few leaves on it that are curled from the heat. I just couldn't be there to water it enough, but you know, the new growth is fairly good. It could use a watering right now, but you can see how it's filled in. It's looking quite nice, and it's getting a nice flare at the base of the tree. I could remove these stones now. They've done their job holding the tree in the pot. And this is planted in a pot by Chris Snedden. It's a sort of metallic pot. It's really, really nice. The flower pattern around the lip. Yeah. So I just thought I'd show you an update to the Korean maple. Quite a beautiful little tree. I'll give the maple a good watering. Cool it off a bit. And it's on a bench that's partially shaded throughout the day, so it doesn't see really intense sunlight. And it seems to be happy under those conditions. Okay. So I'll just let it grow for the rest of the year, and then when it loses its leaves in winter, I'll prune it up once again. I'm off to water my trees now. So that's all for today. I'm Nigel Saunders. Thanks for joining me in the Bonsai Zone.